Holocene has ended. What we do now and in the next few years will profoundly affect the next few thousand years. The only conditions modern humans have ever known so far are changing, and changing fast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's try that one more time. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and a warm welcome to the second Brandix Sustainability Summit. Now, what you heard in the intro was legendary naturalist as well as conservationist Sir David Attenborough talking about how the Holocene has ended. The Holocene is a period after the last known ice age, 11,000 odd years to be exact, and the latter part of which has been defined by humanity, as well as our impact on the planet, the climate, as well as our resources. What he goes on to mention is that what we do in the here and now, right now, will define the next 1,000 or so years, as well as the millennia to come. A wonderful backdrop for the summit and discussions we're about to have here this evening. My name is Dino Correa. I'll be your moderator, but we have a wonderful panel who'll be sharing their insights. Lovely to have all of you here with us at a physical event as well as a virtual event, a combined event. A warm welcome to a lush Brandix Essentials facility here in Ratmalana, as well as a warm welcome to everyone joining us online on the Zoom link as well. Now, today's discussion with our line of experts will encompass various aspects of sustainability, of course, along the lines of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, as it is better known. We will look at some of the pressing issues that face our climate and our world, and also the role of end-to-end initiatives by corporates and the need to give important focus to all aspects of the triple bottom line: people, planet, as well as profit. Each of our speakers here this evening bring a wealth of knowledge in terms of policies from a global, national, as well as organizational perspective towards sustainable development, the risks that we face if we do not give adequate focus to these areas, and the rewards that can be reaped by giving progressive and proactive attention and taking proactive steps forward. Keep in mind, we'll have a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions to our physical audience, to note them down. We'll be taking it at the end of the presentations. To those of us joining us on Zoom, you can direct your questions via the chat feature on Zoom, and we'll direct them to a relevant panelist. A reminder to please keep the questions short, as we want to optimize for time and make sure we take as many questions as possible. With that, let me introduce our keynote speakers, our rock stars for the evening. Joining us virtually, we have Claire Kells, Senior Manager for Corporate Engagement for the UN Global Compact. It's very early over there. Thank you, Claire, for making the time to join us. Ruby Oja, the Senior Environmental and Social Development Specialist for International Finance Corporation, or IFC, which is a member of World Bank Group. We also have Teja Sampath, the Senior Director for Corporate Responsibility SA and Sustainability Offshore for PVH Corp. And of course, from our very own host, Brandix, who will also share successes, insights, and stories from their own sustainability journey across the last decade and a half, and the vital role that ESG will play in industry of the future. With us here today, we have Akila as well as Viraj, who are going to be talking a little bit about Brandix's sustainability journey, and a warm welcome to them as well. All right, with that, without further ado, let's speak to our first presenter, who will be doing a special presentation. Claire Kells is the Senior Manager for Corporate Engagement at the UN Global Compact, the United Nations Corporate Sustainability Initiative. Claire is responsible for helping companies throughout their sustainability journey, from ambitious goal setting to taking action proactively and communicating that impact to stakeholders. Throughout her years at the UN Global Compact, Claire has led elements throughout growth as well as business operations and worked to bring the voice of responsible business of major international corporates to major international conferences, including the Paris Climate Agreement and the Rio 20 UN Conference on Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please put your hands together for Claire Kells.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here all the way from New York. Indeed, it's a little early and I have a slight cold, so I hope you can hear me very well, but I'm very glad to be sharing some slides with you. So I'll go ahead and share that screen. And I'm delighted to say that Brandix is a participant of the UN Global Compact. So kudos to you and your colleagues for your participation already. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about the sustainability world and the role of the United Nations and the UN Global Compact in it, and why this work is so important. So the Global Compact has been around for about 20 years. We were founded by then Secretary General Kofi Annan at a speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he called on CEOs to join forces and work with the United Nations. And the next day, some CEOs called him up and said, yes, we'd like to join. So that's how the UN Global Compact was born, as a platform and a framework for companies to commit to working to be more responsible and more sustainable. More recently, in the year 2015, of course, the Paris Climate Agreement was adopted by 193 nations on Earth. And that was a framework for government to agree to reducing national carbon and greenhouse gas emissions by the year 2050. Also, importantly, in the year 2015, the UN Sustainable Development Goals were adopted. And you can see this great picture of the goals broadcast on the UN building one of the nights when they were adopted. And so at the UN Global Compact, we're working to help business align with these global frameworks that were originally designed for government, right? So government has a responsibility to protect its citizens and create a more peaceful world, but everyone has a role to play, including business, and of course, us as individuals and employees and consumers. So these days, the UN Global Compact works on two frameworks. One is our founding original framework of principles, universal principles covering human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. And we take a very holistic approach to responsibility and sustainability. And you can see these themes are what today we now call ESG. So the UN Global Compact was instrumental in developing the idea of ESG almost 20 years ago. But the fundamental underlying themes are human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. And of course, I mentioned the UN Sustainable Development Goals, those 17 goals that point the way for a more peaceful, just, equitable, and green healthy planet and people. And again, we're working to help business adopt these foundational principles to operate responsibly, but also adopt the UN Sustainable Development Goals at the corporate level so that business is helping achieve the SDGs. And the SDGs have a timeline of the year 2030. So we have about 7 years left to go. These days, the UN Global Compact is about 16,000 businesses and growing. Actually, I can update the slide now. And as I said, Brandix and PVH also represented on the panel are participants. So really great to see this ecosystem and movement of companies growing. And this global presence is made possible through our local networks, right? I'm based in New York at our headquarters, but our global presence around the world is made possible through local networks, including in Sri Lanka, where we have a local network that offers programming and really contextualizes global themes for the national context. And we have local networks in every region of the world doing amazing work. And so here's some example of the progress we've made with business. Business are adopting policies and practices related to those core issue areas: human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. And business leaders are recognizing increasingly that these are critical issues to really maintain operations and strategy of business. And here are some examples of how business is taking action on the Sustainable Development Goals. So I think one of the best examples is around SDG 13 on climate action, where, as I mentioned, the Paris Climate Agreement earlier, that was an agreement among governments. Setting a science-based target for business is the best way for business themselves to set a corporate level goal that helps support the aims of the Paris Climate Agreement and SDG 13. So that's a great example of how international objectives and government action and business action are totally interlinked. So we're working to help more and more business adopt very ambitious corporate level goals like a science-based target. Gender equality is another important one. Goal 5, we're working with business to set gender equality goals in leadership and procurement, right? Both important sides of the equation. Clean water and sanitation is another great example where we're working with business to set what are called context-based water targets. So based on the particular context where your business might have operations and that watershed, what is the right threshold for responsible water stewardship? And let's set a goal. So some great frameworks are emerging, very rigorous and science-driven, to help business align with the SDGs and other international objectives like the Paris Climate Agreement. And of course, there's lots of work that's cross-cutting as well. For example, on innovation. We run a program for young professionals on SDG innovation, and that helps young innovators within companies think of new products, new services, new business models, new ways of working that can help their business progress the SDGs by that deadline of 2030. So just a few examples to bring this alive for you. But of course, the world is not on track to meet the SDGs by that deadline of 2030, right? This is the critical headline. And this is why we need more companies to join the movement and more companies to set ambitious targets to move the needle, right? I like to think of it in the case of tackling climate change and setting a science-based target for business to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Is your business reducing greenhouse gas emissions enough for the Earth to notice? So rigorous and science-driven. So that's the kind of action we need to really move the needle to help achieve the SDGs by that year 2030. And you can see here some of those gaps that are really remain large and challenging, but where business has a unique and critical role to play in achieving progress by 2030. So whether it's gender equality, as I mentioned, tackling climate change, corruption and bribery, but also the worst forms of labor abuses. These are all areas where business has a critical role to play so that we can get ahead of schedule and achieve the SDGs by the year 2030. And all the while, we need to do this together in collaboration and partnership. And our North Star within the UN system is the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohabed, who's calling on us to work together to have collective impact from the private sector. And of course, we work with business, so we're of course mindful that there needs to be the business case for sustainability, and there absolutely is. So we know that in the short term, a focus on responsibility and sustainability can have identifiable operational efficiencies and effectiveness, and really help companies create new opportunities, new business, new products and services, and operate more efficiently. So that's improving some of the short-term gains that you see here on my left of the screen. And all of those activities that are driven by sustainability and corporate responsibility will have a financial impact, a positive financial impact on your business. And we have data to back that up. I don't know if I have all of the slides to show today, but I will happily share that in follow-up. We have the data to back up that investors and regulators and even consumers and employees themselves are demanding these changes for business. So it is good for business. And finally, when the financial improvements and the operational and sustainability improvements work together, that's the long-term value creation for society, planet, and people and business. And so, your sustainability journey, to think of this as a journey, should start with understanding your baseline. Where are you now as a business? And what are your positive impacts? What are your negative impacts? Understand that right now so you can, see the full picture, both positive and negative, right? No greenwashing here. And then set those ambitious goals and targets, like a science-based target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Then take action. And then be transparent and accountable to your stakeholders, right? Transparency is a critically important part of this. And increasingly, again, stakeholders are demanding this information, whether that's investors or regulators or consumers and business partners themselves. So disclosing and communicating your activities and impact is important. So this is the methodology that we use within the UN Global Compact to work with business. And as I said, here's a few slides walking through that in a little bit more detail. Minimizing the negative impact is important, and maximizing the positive impact. So understanding what your current impact is critical first step. And identifying positive impacts in operations, services, core business practices, right? Strategy, operations, products, services. And then, of course, you can understand where you are and where you want to go. And this is the part about using these rigorous scientific frameworks like the Science-Based Targets Initiative or the Context-Based Water Targets framework or concept that I mentioned, right? You can see where your business is, but this is, according to science and rigorous international frameworks where you need to be so that you can set really ambitious goals to get there. And again, that's the way that we make the difference that the Earth will notice. So again, ambitious goal setting to really close that performance gap is critical. And again, why data-driven, rigorous, accountability and transparency about activities is important as well. And of course, communicating this with your stakeholders. Since Brandix is a UN Global Compact participant, I will note that we are rolling out a new questionnaire for business to help communicate their activities in 2023. So really looking forward to seeing the results from this survey and that data that will hopefully allow us to aggregate all the actions of the private sector and tell this global collective impact story of how business is helping make progress to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030, so that we can tell a positive story, but also understand again where the gaps are. Are there gaps in certain sectors? Are there gaps in certain geographies? And how can we work together to bring everyone along to have positive impact? So some resources are coming from the Global Compact to help business with all of this. So again, thank you so much for your attention and your interest in the UN Global Compact and Brandix participation. I look forward to the Q&A later, and of course, any discussion. So thank you so much again for having me, and looking forward to the other panelists.
A big thank you, Claire, once again for sharing the many insights and the work the UN Global Compact has been doing in the areas of promoting best practices and methodologies, as well as how to effectively track results. Thank you once again. We will now move on to our second speaker for the evening, and the first of two from Brandix. I called him Viraj before. I need to apologize for that. Sincerest apologies. Vinura holds a master's in mechanical engineering specializing in sustainable energy systems from the University of Southampton, UK. And he currently leads the energy pillar within the group sustainability team of Brandix, which focuses on energy optimization initiatives. The group has an ambitious but timely goal of achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2025 here in Sri Lanka, a goal Vinura is instrumental in driving. Prior to this, he overlooked the group's waste disposal footprint and was instrumental in facilitating Brandix's partnership with UNDP on sustainable sourcing of biomass. He is also part of the steering committee of the UN Global Compact Network for Sri Lanka. Vinura, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Dino. In fact, I'm happy that he pronounced my name wrong, because that's sort of what's happening in sustainability these days as well. No one really knows what's going on. So I would like to welcome all of you today. It's a pleasure to have you all here, and of course our global audience virtually. And before I really get into what I'm here to speak to you all about, I'm just going to grab your attention to a number that I'm sure you all have already seen, but not too sure about, I presume. What we know about this number, even Claire spoke about it, is the fact that this came obviously from the Paris Agreement in 2015, and it was really the limit to which we have to sort of limit global warming, or the extent to which we need to limit global warming to ensure that we have a planet in the end at all. But once again, it's just 1.5 degrees Celsius, not much. And it seems pretty trivial almost. But what people fail to realize is that the report that really stipulates the effects of not meeting this goal was actually prepared by 250 climate scientists. It was reviewed by another 400. It was actually 630 pages long, and there are 10 pages just to define acronyms. So it's a pretty big deal. And given that context, I'll be speaking to you today about our sustainability approach and what we have done, not only to the environment, but also to the communities. So to speak about our sustainability approach, I'll speak a little bit about our journey in sustainability. Our journey really started in 2007. Obviously, 2007 was not a year where people really spoke about sustainability, and we felt that we needed to be proactive, especially because sustainability will be an important role towards the, I would say, towards the later end of time. And our sustainability journey really kicked off in 2008 when our facility in Seedua became the world's first LEED Platinum-rated apparel manufacturing facility. So this was a big deal, not just for us as an organization, but even to the industry and even to the country. And approximately 10 years from now, 10 years from the time we started our journey, we established Batiklo, which right now is our model sustainability, I would say, manufacturing facility. And that too is a LEED Platinum-rated facility, but most importantly, it's the world's first net zero carbon apparel manufacturing facility. So net zero, and by net zero, I mean that all of its energy consumption is met through on-site renewable energy. Harping on a little bit about LEED, top left is our facility in Batiklo, which once again, as I mentioned, is LEED Platinum-rated. It's in fact the highest LEED-rated building in Sri Lanka. And the top right is actually the facility we are here today hosting this event, which is also a LEED Gold certified building in Ratpalana, obviously. And bottom left is actually Koggala, which also is a LEED Gold. And bottom right, I would say, is really the facility that catalyzed our sustainability journey, which is Brandix Seedua. So our sustainability approach really was solid because of our sustainability framework. Our sustainability framework, which is anchored in the pillars of air, water, and earth, really look to reduce our negative impact to the environment. The air pillar looks to prioritize renewable energy and, of course, resource optimization, while the water pillar looks to provide safe drinking water to our associates and also zero water wastage. And the earth pillar overlooks our waste footprint of the entire group and looks of innovative solutions when it comes to the disposal of waste. if I take some time on our renewable energy footprint, especially because this is a direct correlation to our net zero impact, we currently have 12 megawatts of solar power across our facilities, and we hope to increase that to 20 megawatts early next year. So 12 megawatts might not seem like a lot in context, it's just 12, but if I am to really equate that to numbers, it's approximately planting around 750,000 trees. So that is a significant amount considering our business operation. And from operation point of view, all our boilers use 100% of fuel wood or biomass sustainably sourced, which means that we have actually been able to save approximately 4 million liters of furnace oil annually. What does this really mean, in terms of 100% biomass, 12 megawatts of solar, 20 megawatts of solar? What has that really done to us in terms of an impact? From when we started to where we are now, we have been able to reduce our carbon emissions intensity by 84%, our water consumption by 27%, and also we have successfully diverted all our waste from landfills. And it's not just about the environment. Just like the environment, the communities in which we operate is also a massive part in our DNA of the company. Mainly because we want to uplift the community. We want to make sure that it's better than it was before we were there. And when we did basically a consensus check with our employees, we realized that the access to clean drinking water was definitely a problem with our associates. And that is why we have prioritized the access to clean drinking water through our flagship Care for Our Own and Model Village projects. So the Care for Our Own projects looks to provide clean drinking water to all our associates, and also the Model Village project looks to provide water and sanitation equipment to nearby communities, ranging from police stations to schools to public institutions to places of worship. And as we realize that water was a concern, similarly, right now we understand that the food insecurity is definitely a problem. And this is why we have partnered with organizations such as the UNDP, the United Nations Development Programme in Sri Lanka, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, to really combat that issue of food insecurity. And that is to provide. In terms of education, we have provided scholarships to our students, to our employees' children, to their siblings, and even to themselves, while uplifting their lives as well. Through programs such as PACE, which stands for Personal Advancement and Career Enhancement, it was initiated by GAP, and also programs such as Brandix Shilpa, we are able to really uplift the living standards of our associates, irrespective of whether they end up with Brandix or not. It's just a fact that we need to develop themselves so that they could be of use to the country and hopefully even to the world. From a social impact point of view, what does this really mean? Similar to the environment. So we have been able to reach almost 250,000 people through our water projects in Sri Lanka. We have been able to provide scholarships to more than 5,000 people here in Sri Lanka. And also, when we take India, for example, our flagship iCare initiative has benefited over 35,000 people. And through these initiatives, the environmental initiatives, our social initiatives, where do these really click in together? Another very, I would say, important aspect of our sustainability framework is the reporting process. And we have been, as one of the first corporate entities to publish a fully fledged sustainability report, we are happy to mention that starting from 2011, we have published 6 sustainability reports up to date, according to the GRI framework. Once again, covering crucial elements across the E, S, and G. So we understand that, yes, we did cover almost all these elements in terms of the environmental aspects, the social aspects, and even the governance aspects, rather. But we really wanted to intertwine these closer together, and that's where we rolled out our ESG framework, which covers 21 material topics. Our ESG framework really, it's just not a matter of covering more and more material topics, but the whole idea behind our ESG framework was to, as I mentioned before, increase that interdependence between these goals, which have been separated amongst E, S, and G, and also to help enhance the risk identification process of the organization from an ESG risk point of view, and also to make more structured decisions, or rather to let this ESG framework rather complement the decision-making process of the organization. And in conclusion, I would like to just end on our DNA slide and maybe take a moment to actually thank all our people at Brandix, because at the end of the day, if not for our people, if not for our inspired people, we won't be able to continue to deliver inspired solutions. And without inspired solutions, we won't be able to inspire beyond, especially through our CSR and sustainability efforts. So on that note, I would like to also mention that this was our take in inspiring organizations, in inspiring companies, inspiring individuals in their sustainability journey. Thank you very much. Dino.
Thank you very much, Vinura, for that presentation. A net zero carbon across all facilities in Sri Lanka by 2023. In India by 2025. Ambitious as it may have seemed, Brandix is on its way on achieving those objectives. Thank you, Vinura, for sharing the many lessons Brandix has learned in its holistic approach to sustainability and how sustainable practices can truly be embedded into the fabric of business. Very clearly explained. Thank you once again. Now, to illustrate what was mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to take a few minutes to watch a short film by BBC Storyworks on Brandix Essentials Batiklo, the world's first net zero carbon certified apparel manufacturing facility, which was certified in 2019. The short film will show you the profound effects the building has had on the quality of lives of people and the role green buildings play in tackling climate change. Please do pay attention to this next presentation.
എൻ്റെ പേര് വന്ന് സുദർശിനി. ഞങ്ങളുടെ മരപ്പാലത്തിൽ சின்னதிலிருந்து மரப்பாலத்தில் வாழ்ந்து வர்றேன் பல காலம் வரைக்கும். மிகவும் கஷ்டமான நிலையில், தண்ணி இல்லாத நிலையில், மழை காலத்தில் மட்டும்தான் தண்ணி. நாங்கள் தண்ணி இல்லாமல் எதுவும் செய்யலாது. எங்களுக்கு தண்ணி ஒரு கிலோமீட்டர் தூரம் தண்ணிக்கு போகணும். பிள்ளையை கூட்டி கொண்டு தான் காலையில் மார்னிங் வேலைக்கு பிள்ளையை கூட்டி ஒரு நாளைக்கு 2 தரம் தண்ணி எடுக்க போகிறேன். ஈவினிங் ஷிஃப்ட் வந்து எடுக்கிறேன். ஒரு நாளைக்கு 2 தரம் தண்ணி எடுக்க போகும். இந்த மனிதன் உயிர் வாழ்கிறது தண்ணி கட்டாயம் தேவை. தண்ணி இப்போ இருந்தால் தான் எல்லா இதுகளும். நான் வேலை செஞ்சு தான் எங்களோட குடும்பத்தை பார்க்குறேன்.
Our journey goes back to 1970s. We work with many international premium brands and we provide them with casual wear, intimate wear, lounge wear, and recently we have embarked into kids wear as well. We looked at how to make our business sustainable.
Sustainability at Brandix is broken down into renewable energy as well as resource optimization to provide clean drinking water to all our employees and also ensure zero water wastage as well as the zero discharge of hazardous chemicals. At Brandix, I think sustainability is meeting our needs without compromising the ability of other generations to use theirs.
Our focus approach started in 2008, which resulted in winning the LEED Platinum Award. It's the world's first for our factory in Seeduwa. And then in 2019, we won the Net Zero Carbon Emission Award for this facility here. And this is the world's first Net Zero Carbon Emission Award given to an apparel manufacturing facility.
I think this facility is indeed a fantastic example of a green building. In fact, this facility is powered 100% by solar power, very efficient water system overall in the facility, and when it comes to waste, we've ensured that 100% of all our waste is either reused or recycled.
So our plan is to get all our Sri Lankan manufacturing location to get into net zero carbon position by 2023. When you looked at the whole future and the current complex difficulties the environment is facing, we have a responsibility to do that. This is challenging. However, we can do that. The other side of the sustainability platform we are working is social sustainability. So that is about our people.
Our employees have a much more comfortable experience working here. If we take the orientation of the building, the materials that's been used in the construction, we have tried to minimize the heat gain of the building as much as possible. And also the biodiversity around the facility really helps. We've identified that the access to clean drinking water is a major concern with most of our employees, which is why we have initiated the Care for Our Own project to give access to clean drinking water to all our employees, and has currently benefited 4,500 plus employees.
The well we installed at Sudarshini's home means that the family has access to fresh water without having to walk hours a day.
Helping the community means helping our employees. We have the Model Village project, which looks to provide clean water and sanitation equipment to nearby communities, which is currently at 300 plus beneficiaries.
Sudarshini's daughters both attend a school that enjoys clean water from equipment we fitted, which benefits over 700 students and staff.
I'm very proud to say that as Brandix, we have achieved a lot during this journey. My ambitions for future of Brandix is to grow the company while growing our employees and taking care of the communities as well as the environment.
A moving tribute to the wonderful work done in terms of sustainability, not just impacting livelihoods, but also lives. I think that deserves a round of applause, don't you think, ladies and gentlemen? Our next presentation is by Ruby Oja, a senior environmental and social development specialist and a regional team leader for South Asia in Environmental, Social and Governance Department of the International Finance Corporation, or IFC, a member of the World Bank Group. Ruby has more than 22 years of work experience and has worked extensively in assessing environmental and social risks and designed mitigation measures compliant with IFC performance standards for various projects. She has worked on several ready-made garment sector projects in Bangladesh as well as right here in Sri Lanka, and worked closely with clients in implementing ESG standards. Ladies and gentlemen, Ruby Oja.
Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be here to be part of the Brandix Sustainability Summit. And I have a short presentation. I would like to just share that and then go ahead. All right, so we've heard from my fellow panelists, Claire and Venura, about ESG, sustainability development goals. So in my presentation, what I'm going to talk about is slightly about the value add that sustainability brings. I will also talk about the reference framework that IFC uses when IFC invests in any project, which is the IFC performance standards. And then I will talk very briefly about the initiatives that IFC has been involved in the ready-made garment space. So with that, I don't think I need to elaborate much on the value add that sustainability brings, but just to reiterate the fact that this has been very well accepted by banks, investors, and a lot of institutions, that ESG is becoming a strong decision factor for investors, regulators, and asset managers. There is no debate that the integration of impact and ESG considerations in the investment portfolios is increasingly being found common among the investors around the world. So ESG is one binding factor that is bringing together the investors and other stakeholders who value this. Now, there was a study done by Harvard Business School in 2011, and what they did was they compared two companies. And in order to ensure that this is a real kind of a comparison, what they did was they took two companies which were operating in the same sector and of the same identical size. And as you can see in the graph here, the company which had a strong ESG performance also rated high on the financial performance vis-a-vis the other company. So, clearly ESG performance also translates in terms of financial performance. Now, just elaborating a bit more on what I said, what are the pluses of integrating sustainability in the value system? Sustainability, ESG or sustainability, it guards against unforeseen risks and impacts. So it makes sure that all the risk that one could anticipate is taken care of and integrated into the system, and not leading to a situation that a company gets into something which is unforeseen and then which takes time to resolve that. It also improves the financial and operational performance. So this is like a low-hanging fruit where you would work on things like improving the, let's say, improving the water efficiency, doing other kind of stuff, which would also improve the operational performance, but at the same time also improve the financial gains for the company. Thirdly, and very important point, it would protect the investment against negative media attention. All of us know that negative media attention is a big reputational risk to investors and other stakeholders. So this is making sure that everything is taken care in the right way and does not gather any kind of negative attention. Companies which integrate ESG into their framework get a social license to operate. What do I mean by social license to operate? This would mean that the communities, which are the surrounding communities which are nearby the company, are integrated into the decision-making process. And the communities are supportive of the operations, and in a way the company gets the social license to operate. I was very happy to look at the presentation which came before the session to now, and in which there was a video showing how the company engages with the Brandix engages with the communities, and which is in a way like social license to operate. And then needless to say that ESG assessments done against international standards provide an international stamp of approval. With that, as I said, I do not need to delve further into why sustainability brings in value, because we've seen my panelists talk about it. We've seen videos, but maybe I'll go slightly deeper into what IFC does. So IFC helps clients understand the environmental and social and the governance risks they are faced. We work very closely. We actually handhold our clients to find innovative solutions that open up opportunities for sustainable investment. So we have a set of our ESG policies, guidelines that are widely accepted by several investors, and we get to implement those policies and guidelines in all the projects that we are financing. So, in terms of our sustainability framework, we heard Vinura talking about Brandix sustainability framework, and I'll talk here about IFC sustainability framework. We have a sustainability policy in place and also an access to information policy. So whichever projects we invest in, we do kind of a disclosure about the investment. We are disclosure on the ENS risk and the mitigations for that particular project. We also have 8 performance standards, which is on environmental and social sustainability. And each of the performance standards actually covers a thematic area, and I'll get into it what thematic areas are covered by each of the performance standards. But apart from this, we have detailed guidelines, we have guidance notes for each of the performance standards, and we have good practice materials. We also have EHS guidelines for different sectors, including for the RMG sector, the textile sector. So let me then talk about the performance standards here. The first performance standard, which is called the PS1, so I'll be using the abbreviation PS, which is performance standard. PS1 is for assessment and management of ENS risk and impacts. So as all of you would appreciate here, that unless a risk is identified, it cannot be, unless it is identified, it cannot be addressed. So the first key task is to identify the risk and then able to be mitigated. So what we commonly refer to PS1 is we refer to as the umbrella PS. The reason being that this is something that will apply 100% to all our investments, identification of risk and assessment and management of the ENS risk. So this is a documented approach to identifying and assessing the risk. And the different components of performance standard 1 would include that the company. So how it would translate for a company is that the company's commitment to ensure sustainability or implement sustainability would be documented in the form of a policy. So when we are doing an investment, we would see to it that the company has the following components as part of the management system. The first one is the policy, the EHS policy, which is a reiteration of their commitment. There is an organizational capacity and competency in place to make sure that that policy is getting implemented, their sustainability programs are getting implemented. Then there's a system in place for identification of risk and impact. It could be different ways, whether through an audit, through a diligence, whatever it is. Also, for us, stakeholder engagement and grievance redressal mechanism is a very key component, and we do look that the company has system in place to address that, and also systems in place for ensuring monitoring and review and appropriate management programs. So this is all about PS1. So essentially, the crux of PS1 is having a robust management system in place, which addresses all the possible risks and integrates it into the decision-making process, making sure that there is stakeholder engagement, which is all through the cycle. The second important performance standard, which is also relevant to the kind of operations that Brandix does, is PS2, which is on labor and working conditions. Under PS2, what we would look under is that the company has HR policies and procedures, which are largely aligned with the ILO convention and also aligned with the details that we provide in the performance standard. The working conditions are reasonable. The workers have right for freedom of association and collective bargaining. The workers' accommodation is provided in line with what is good practice. There is a policy on non-discrimination, equal opportunity. Grievance mechanism is well developed, allows provision for anonymous reporting. There is no child labor and forced labor. And then on occupational health safety, there is a robust plan in place. And then also we look at the supply chain aspects. So as you can see, there is a whole set of areas that is covered under PS2. This is a very key component. This would apply to not just the employees, but also to the third-party workers that would be at the factory premises. So whenever we are investing, we do look at all of these aspects, making sure that they're aligned with the best practices. PS3 pertains to pollution prevention and resource efficiency. And in this, we would basically look at thematic areas which pertain to environment. I heard Vinura talk about some of those aspects, whether it was on waste management, GHG emission management, or wastewater handling. So in this case, again, we would look how the company is managing on those and provide best practice guidance on handling of waste, hazardous material, ensuring that the operations are resource efficient and making sure that they have good practices on energy efficiency and water efficiency. And then, of course, making plans to reduce the GHG emissions. So this one largely relates to pollution prevention and what measures are there. The next one is on PS4, which is community health, safety, and security. So as you would gauge by the name, this relates to community health and safety. How the operations of the project would impact the community is something that we look here. There could be different interfaces with the community, whether it could be because of large labor influx, which could be impacting the communities, or it could be because of other aspects. One important aspect, and which I've highlighted in the slide, is life and fire safety. Life and fire safety is very relevant for the ready-made garment sector. So whenever we are investing, we make sure we check how the engineering design is and what mitigation measures the company is taking to make sure that the life and fire safety practices are robustly built into the system. And it's not just about having a sprinkler or extinguisher, but making sure that based on the operations, the size of the operation, the risk level, appropriate life and fire safety provisions have been made or not. So this is something that we review in quite detail. And before I go into other aspects, I also want to very quickly talk about the other performance standards. So these 4 performance standards actually apply to more than 90% of the projects. Apart from that, there are other 4 performance standards, PS5, which pertains to land acquisition and involuntary resettlement. And this would apply in scenarios such as, there's a government-led resettlement or There's land purchase involved where there was physical or economic displacement. So in that scenarios, this performance standard would get triggered and we would apply the mitigations accordingly. Then PS6 is on biodiversity conservation and sustainable management of living natural resources. And this would apply if the project is located in an area which has, let's say, important biodiversity areas, key biodiversity areas, or the project activities are in any way impacting that. PS7 is for indigenous people. So this would be relevant when the project activities are impacting the indigenous people or the land take is from tribal communities, what we call as tribal communities or the indigenous people. PS8 is for cultural heritage, and this would apply if the project is impacting any a cultural heritage thing. So, but I mean, these would apply depending on the location of a project. It's not necessary that all 8 performance standards apply to every project, but as I said, 1, 2, 3, 4 are pretty generic and would mostly be applying to all the investments. Now with that, now having heard about the performance standards, I thought it would be interesting to see if we are looking at this here. If you're talking about the ready-made garment specifically, then what could be the issues of relevance, and if we could club it under different PSS, like PS1 is, as I said, it's the umbrella, so it would definitely apply here, saying that how are the risk assessed, what management system the company has in place, what is the policy on EHS sustainability policy, what is the organizational structure and all that stuff. In terms of PS2, if we look here, labor and working conditions, gender-based violence, freedom of association and collective bargaining, occupational health and safety. So these are the issues of relevance. Under PS3, it would be resource efficiency, hazardous material, waste management, pollution prevention, GHG emissions, and then PS4, life and fire safety, and so on. So you see that this is for textile industry, the entire life cycle, and then how different issues come into picture at different stages. Now, I'll very quickly talk about some of the initiatives that IFC has been involved in. So the first initiative is Better Work. Better Work is actually, this is a collaboration between IFC and International Labour Organization. And the purpose is to improve, enhance the working conditions in the factories. And this Better Work program is being implemented in more than 1,400 factories so far, and this is in 9 countries, including in, I know that Brandix is also a part of the Better Work program. Then is on gender. Under this program, this is a partnership which was implemented in Bangladesh, and this helps factories to promote the female sieving operators by teaching them soft skills and knowledge necessary to take on the supervisory roles. So, this is basically to work with the female operators and to empower them by teaching them soft skills. The third one is fire and building safety. As I mentioned earlier, this is a key risk in the RMG sector. So under this initiative, this is kind of a initiative to improve the life and fire safety systems, the life and fire safety standards. So there has been some financial assistance that was provided, and also building capacity for the environmental and social risk management, so that companies in the garment sector are aware of this risk and taking this into consideration. The next one is the Global Trade Supplier Finance Program. This is again a finance program. And to make sure that which supplies monetary incentives to make ENS improvements, and IFC has joined forces with Levois to finance their suppliers, and this program has been ongoing since 2010. The last one, but certainly not the least one, is the Partnership for Cleaner Textiles. As you can make out from the name, this is for making sure that to assist the factories in adopting efficiency practices to reduce water, energy, and chemical use. And there has been a lot of work that has already been done by IFC and through this program of Partnership for Cleaner Textiles. So once again, I would just like to I'd like to express my gratitude for inviting me to this panel, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that may come up later or now. And thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Ruby, for sharing those insights on ESG for sustainability and overview of IFC performance standards and, of course, IFC's initiatives relevant to this sector. Now, our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, hails from the wonderful world of fashion retail. Teja Sampath is a sustainability, corporate responsibility, and supply chain professional with over 20 years' experience in major international brands like Nike, Calvin Klein, and Tommy Hilfiger, emanating from a background of top global textile apparel manufacturers as well as exporters. A certified futurist, he is passionate about driving sustainable business growth for the industry through innovation and multi-stakeholder collaboration across the value chain. Tejas is involved in the value chain of the future, with specific responsibility to chart the journey of circular business models to alleviate the strain on finite planet resources as well as the production process. Ladies and gentlemen, could we please give Teja Sampath a warm welcome.
Hello and good evening, everyone at Brandix. Thank you very much for a warm introduction, and also congratulations for having a second sustainability summit for Brandix. I am unfortunately not able to join in person, but nevertheless happy to join the panel virtually. So I would like to share a little bit about, our, why there is so much of focus on ESG for our industry, fashion industry, and what PVH is doing to drive sustainability and sustainability related focus. Allow me to share my screen. So today I would like to cover two key areas, and the first one being, why sustainability is so much in focus. I think we heard a lot from different panelists on why sustainability is a huge focus area for everyone, from the UNGC perspective, and also from Brandix, what you guys doing as manufacturer in the area, as well as from Ruby on International Financial Corporation. Similarly, the second aspect of today's presentation from my end was like what PVH is doing, and what are the key focus ESG areas for us, what is our sustainable business plan looks like, and our sustainability strategy, which is called Forward Fashion, and what it has in store for us as well as our manufacturing partner. Now, I think this is something which all our fellow panelists also spoke and touch upon. I think why there is a huge focus on sustainability from key stakeholders. That this has been on focus for many years now. I think sustainability, ever since the Paris Climate Agreement, there is a lot of talk and a lot of work being done. But if you notice that last couple of years, ever since COVID has stuck, and post-pandemic, reopening of the industry and the businesses, there has been heightened focus on sustainability. And from multi-stakeholder point of view, it has been in focus, right? It's not just one-dimensional, but it is multi-dimensional. I think one of the first stakeholders I would like to speak about is consumer, right? And consumer behavior and expectations have changed drastically post 2019 pandemic. more and more consumers are now demanding sustainable products, right, from the brands, and including, if you look at our own expectations and our own preferences have changes, right, last couple of years. Not only they are consumers expecting sustainable products and packaging, but they're also expecting, the transparent communication about the sustainability attributes, like how the product is being made and what kind of material is being used, how it is sourced, and where it is coming from, the origin of the material. There was never such a huge focus on product origin and product traceability. The other key stakeholder has been, shareholders and investors. I think Brandix is also a company. I mean, you have your shareholders and investors. You would have experienced, a lot of focus on not just the financial performance of the company, but also the non-financial performance, right? Which is mainly related to ESG criteria. Now, last couple of years, that focus has been kind of increased, and it's almost the same weightage of financial numbers. Companies are not just can show, a quarter-over-quarter profits and get away with not so performing ESG on ESG criteria. So we have seen that's across for fashion retail industry, as well as also the other industry. The third important stakeholder in this is NGOs and unions. Of course, when we hear about NGOs and unions, there are a lot of negative sort of feedback which we probably hear through our past experiences, but they are very important stakeholders that keep the industry, keep the companies on check, right? Like everybody is doing their bit in order to ensure that we are on right track, in terms of the aspects like workers' rights, wages, freedom of association, working conditions in manufacturing setup, organization safety and health, and other environment sustainability related aspects. So more and more scrutiny, and reputational risk come from these stakeholders if the company is not doing enough or not doing well on ESG criteria. And the last but not least, the governments. Increased regulatory risk, as we know, especially coming from the Western countries, the European countries, and a few other countries where the governments are focusing more and more on climate risk, sustainability aspect, product and packaging, and also bringing regulations around how the brands are making claims on sustainable products. So that, I think Claire touched upon greenwashing, right? And there is a huge scrutiny on how companies are performing and they are selling or marketing their product, and they are not indulging in any sort of greenwashing. This is one of the survey done in 2019 by McKinsey, and in their report, they targeted primarily Gen Z as a consumer, and see what they and how they look at the company and the brand and and the sustainability. And 70% of Gen Z consumer are willing to pay more, and when they associate themselves with a particular brand, right? The brand image which is associated with sustainability and human rights. Similarly, 70% of the consumers who have a purpose driven a brand. So any brand which is having, or company having a purpose driven focus, they're seeing that more and more consumers are inclined towards them. 57% of Gen Z consumers seeking more environmentally sustainable product. So earlier the trend was like, the consumers are, when looking at the product, they're nice to have if they have, sustainability attributes, they're not ready to pay. But now through this survey, we see like 57% of the respondents said that we would not mind paying more for such product. And 66% also admit that they have to be cognizant about the climate change, and therefore, they wanted to associate with the company who was combating climate, and especially, post-COVID scenario. Similarly, there has been an increased regulatory risk from mainly from European governments. I think we recently heard that, some of the Nordic countries and European countries having tightening up the screw on greenwashing, right? So they are bringing legislation to ensure the companies are not indulging in greenwashing by making false claim around sustainability. At the same time, they are also going to introduce a process where, kind of defining what is greenwashing and how companies or brands can substantiate green claims. Because identifying something with greenwashing is one thing, but also educating brands and companies that how can they market or they communicate their product and product related sustainability related attributes to consumers. So they are coming up with that. So next 3 to 4 years, we will see that there will be a lot of work in this area. There will be a legislation around that, and that legislation will also determine how brands can and brand manufacturers can make and sell product. What are the minimum criteria of selling the product in those countries, and what minimum level of information on sustainability related attributes to be provided on that. So this is again and getting a lot of momentum, from the regulatory standpoint. Now I will take you through the journey of PVH, how we are focusing, on ESG related criteria through our sustainable business plan and our forward fashion strategy, which is overarching all our sustainability related efforts. So here, some of the key criteria where we are focusing on emission and energy, materials, being more sustainable on materials, women empowerment, worker voice, circularity and circular business model, environmental and ethical sourcing, hazardous chemical and microfibers removal, water usage, socially ethical sourcing, safe and healthy workplace, biodiversity, living wage, ethical recruitment, water action, sustainable packaging, and waste reduction and waste management throughout the supply chain. So I think heard of these things, from my fellow volunteers. I think Claire and Ruby both spoke about that in their presentation, and trust me, we're not coordinated. I'm seeing their presentation for the first time, but I think it's just that, we all, I think, looking at the same thing, and our focus is in the right direction. Again, PVH, there are 3 key strategies, to bring sustainability to life. And those 3 key strategies which we adapted to our sustainable business plan is winning with the consumer. That means that, consumers are demanding more and more sustainable product, and we want to ensure that we make more sustainable product, and then we engage with them. We make the right level of communication with them about sustainable product. Therefore, they like our product and buy our product, right? So they associated with our brands and company, and then while they make a purchase decision about our product. Second is embed sustainability in our operations. Now, we've been, I think, talking a lot about sustainability within sustainability team, corporate responsibility team, and few other governance team. But what about the teams like designers and the product development team, supply chain team, logistics? What we are looking at, I think, embed the sustainability in operations on every area of the company and every functions and region, right? So when we talk about sustainability, everyone has the same vision. What we have developed in CR for our company. And we want to elevate our engagement with the key stakeholders, right? And when we talk about stakeholders, the stakeholder list is growing bigger and bigger. Earlier, it was more about few teams internally, and we had external stakeholders like our suppliers and customers. But now that list is like we engage more with government, with third parties, with the innovators, and also with the organizations like UNGC and IFC, ILO, and many other stakeholders, right? And we all collectively into it. So it's not just that the one company or one brand. I think it's an industry level effort. it is an effort where everybody is, looking at elevating our game and how do we achieve our collective targets towards sustainability. There are some of the themes which we have been focusing with our brands, both our power brands, Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, as well as our regions, our customer regions, which primarily North America, Europe, and Asia. These themes are, shifting more and more to sustainable materials from the traditional material, bring circular design as a default. Use more and more circularity design aspect, expand circular business models. So right now we are into model of just, making and selling, but we would like to, introduce, the resale, re-commerce, repair and some other, business model that support circularity. We want to shift to green packaging, more on the recycling and also using a non-petroleum based packaging, reduce carbon emission, which is a huge focus for us, and also best in class water stewardship. So these are 3 key areas where we are focusing in next 3 to 5 years, right? So if you look at the key areas, or rather, sorry, by up to 2024, 2025, we saw 16 areas on ESG, but out of that, 3 key areas: sustainable material and packaging, climate action, and value chain transparency. We want, I think our company is predominantly dealing with the cotton as a key fiber. So we want to ensure, our cotton is sustainable by 2025. Also, viscose is another key fiber for us. And we want to ensure by 2025, we use only sustainable viscose in our product. Similarly, we want to ensure the poly bags which we use in our supply chain, they are all recycled or used from bio-based materials, and provide a training on circularity and provide tools to our designers to make more circular design and products. Similarly, on climate action, we want to ensure that our own and operated facilities, we use renewable energy. Our target internally to have, fully convert to the renewable energy by 2030. Similarly, we have also target for supply chain partners to have a 30% reduction from the baseline of 2019 and 2020 through their operations. Now, how do we target to achieve? There are some partners like Brandix who already ahead in the game and have on-site solar panel installation, which is a renewable energy form. But then there are also facilities which cannot do installation online. For those, we would also encourage a virtual power purchase agreement and those solutions, and PVH which will support and facilitate those conversations. Similarly, we want to ensure that we are publishing all the data and reports to meet investors and expectations and regulatory environment in terms of climate action. The third pillar is value chain transparency. We want to ensure that we have a clear visibility of our supply chain, not just our cut and sew facilities or partners like Brandix, but also our raw material supply chain partners, like we call them level 2 partners. And then we also have want to have a visibility on our product where level 3 and level 4 raw material is coming from, right? Especially like yarn, fabrics and yarns, and also cotton coming from. So we want to build that level of supply chain transparency. We also want to leverage our systems and collaborate with the third-party innovators to ensure that our IT systems are upgraded. We kind of capture all sort of environment and human rights and social performance and gather their data, and also able to publish that what we have gathered through our value chain. And similarly, leverage environmental human rights performance data to ensure that we communicate that performance with our consumers to increase sales, with our investors to meet their expectations, and also fulfill government regulatory environmental risk. The last part of my presentation is about our forward fashion strategy. You some of you might have heard at Brandix, because we have been presenting again and again through our internal communications. Our forward fashion strategy was primarily derived from the UNGC Global Compact, that's Sustainable Development Goals, right? So you will see a lot of, again, recall of similarities of what Claire called out in her presentation. Now, we call it forward fashion, and we drive fashion forward for good, and that's our ambition. We divided that into the 3 key pillars or 3 areas: 0, 100%, and 1 million. So what does it mean, 0? So through 0, we want to reduce the negative impact through our operations and product to 0. Through 100%, we want to increase or amplify the positive impact to 100%. And 1 million is more community-based targets and goals, where we want to improve 1 million lives through our value chain partners. Now, these are the 15 priorities which we put it down under these 3 categories, right? When you look at 0, it's more about the environmental areas, where we want to eliminate carbon emissions, we want to reduce or end waste, eliminate hazardous chemical microfibers, and we want to ensure that we innovate products that meet the circularity targets. Very similarly, on 100%, amplify our efforts on source ethically, amplify worker voice, promote safe and safe workplaces. I think Ruby spoke a lot in her presentation, and how the efforts are being made to make sure that the manufacturing facilities are safe enough for the workers. Focus on advanced living wage, recruit ethically, and use more regenerative materials. The last pillar, we have focus areas like empowering women, foster inclusion, diversity, develop talent internally and also externally with our partners, provide access to water, and educate future generation. Now, how do we drive this forward, right? So we know, like, what is our target, what are the 3 key areas, and what 15 priorities we cover under those areas. But at the same time, we want to innovate, we want to engage. So we want to innovate, drive industry transformation through our external partnership and other stakeholders. We want to engage with best-in-class suppliers and stakeholders to drive that. We would measure, so we measure on each and every of these criteria. We have internal tracking tools and KPIs that measure the performance and progress against the baseline, and then improve from there, right? So that's our way of how we drive this forward. And this is the snapshot of how we internally track the progress and also make it public. So this slide, and maybe as an audience you can't see much in detail, but because it's very fine numbers, but I can just call out, this is from our CR report of 2021 that was published a second quarter of this year. So every year we publish our CR report, and that also has a dashboard or a scorecard that talks about performance in each of these areas. So we are not only just making commitments or public commitments against these criteria, but we also measuring them and publishing, our progress year on year to see how we are doing. Just to give an example on regenerative materials, our target is to become 100% by 2025 for cotton and viscose, and become 100% sustainable polyester by 2030. So on cotton, we have already achieved 54% company-wide. On viscose, we're a little slow at 25%. So and polyester, the goal is by 2030. So we are at 28%. Similarly, if you look at some of the other areas, provide access to water. Now we are 100% achieve that goal, because we had identified the 3 key manufacturing regions where we were engaging, or we have an external partnership with WWF to drive water stewardship program, and we are tracking pretty much, and we on those goals. So this is the way how we look at the ESG. We have made the public commitments. and we are driving the performance on ESG and sustainability internally in monitoring and tracking. That's what I had for today. Thank you very much for listening. And I will be hoping to have some questions, and will try my best to answer your questions in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again to Tejas for sharing his thoughts on how to drive fashion forward for good, and the good work done, of course, by PVH Corp. Let me introduce our final speaker for the evening, ladies and gentlemen, and he's one of Brandix's very own. Akila Fernando is the Deputy General Manager for Engineering at Brandix Group Engineering. He holds an MSc from Royal Institute of Technology, Sweden, and a Master's in Energy Engineering from the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya in Barcelona. Over the course of his career, Akila's experience spans many forms of engineering, with a decade's experience in sustainability as well as the renewable energy space. At Brandix, he was instrumental in the implementation of the 20-megawatt rooftop solar PV project, which contributes significantly towards the group's goal of being net zero carbon in Sri Lanka by 2023. Whilst very much a hands-on engineer, Akila's devotion to academia, as well as numerous degrees and masters from leading universities, have led him to have several international publications under his name. He was a contributor to the working paper Advanced Gender Equality, Social Inclusion, and Women's Empowerment in the Sustainable Energy Sector, presented at SE for All Forum in Lisbon in 2018. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please give Akila a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Dino. Thank you very much, Dino. Sustainability, or ESG, is a topic that connects us to a wider community. So the audience that we have is a good example for that. We have people from different geographies. We have people from different backgrounds, from government sector to private sector, bankers, policymakers, and also from international brands. So once again, thank you very much for joining with us, both virtually and physically. I'll start off my presentation with some interesting facts. Maybe interesting is not the right word here. I would say some alarming facts. I'm not going to read them one by one because you all can read them. What I want to highlight here is that we are definitely not on track to achieve our climate targets. And also, we may have not reached the level of progress that we would have wanted by now. But still, though we are late, we are still not too late. We can still act upon them and achieve our targets, provided that we start acting immediately, provided we start converting our plans and our thoughts into action immediately. So that is one of the key takeaways from this summit for everyone who has joined with us. So we've been practicing a business model which is not right, which is not sustainable. So when I say we, it's not about Brandix or the apparel sector. It's common to all industries since industrialization. So we've been extracting raw materials or virgin material from the environment. We produce a product, and the production is pretty much profit-oriented. And then once the product reaches its end of life, we simply dispose them. This linear mode of business or linear mode of thinking will not help us when we are looking at a sustainable future in the shorter time frame. So definitely a transformation is required. We have to transform from this linear business model to a sustainable business model, which is a circular business model, where there's nothing called waste. So waste is another form of raw material, either in your business model or in your business process or in another for another industry. And also, compared to your profit-oriented manufacturing process, you will be looking at the triple bottom line. You will be giving equal importance to the triple bottom line: people, planet, and profit. When I say people, it's not just about the people within the organization. it's also about the people who are beyond the boundaries as well. So this transformation is a must. It's about the time that we do, and some organizations have already adopted to this change. Some are in the process, some are in the transition, and some organizations have not even thought about it. So it's important that we do it immediately, simply because we don't have access to unlimited resources. Our ecological footprint is already 1.6, which means the world is not in a position to cater the growing demands of the world population. So then I'll talk about why ESG is important for corporate strategy. So these are all based on published data. I'm going to talk about 4 factors here. Investor demand, so I don't have to talk about it because Ruby explained it very well. So definitely investors, banks, they are looking at ESG framework as a way of evaluating an organization's performance, ESG performance, to evaluate the risk versus reward. And I'm sure the colleagues who have joined with us from the banking sector will agree with us on that. And then again, the consumer demand, like Tejas explained, there's a growing demand for sustainable products, and especially among the Gen Z, and they are pretty much willing to pay an extra also, premium also, for sustainable products. And the interesting fact here is that youth or Gen Z, they prefer to work in organizations that are environmentally responsible. So going forward, a decent pay or a salary or decent pay may not be the only factor that will help you to attract new talent and to retain talent as well. So if you want the best talent in the country or in the world to work in an organization, definitely you all have to be environmentally responsible. And then of course, productivity, because in sustainability, you are looking at optimization from different aspects. Can be water, can be energy, can be improvements in the air quality, indoor air quality. So in all these aspects, you are ultimately increasing the productivity of your facility or your business. So our strategic priorities, how we have aligned with UN Sustainable Development Goals, I'm not going to go into details in the interest of time. But what I want to highlight here is that when you're talking about sustainability, always align your priorities along with a structured framework. It can be either the UN Sustainable Development Goal, it can be an ESG framework, because otherwise you will start focusing too much on one or two aspects of sustainability, and you will definitely or simply miss some of the essential elements also. So these structured frameworks are very important and will be very helpful in looking at sustainability in a holistic manner and to see the big picture as well. So this is our progress so far. I'm not going to talk about the social aspect here because Vinura covered it very well. So I'm going to talk about the environmental performance or environmental sustainability at Brandix. So at Brandix, we believe sustainability is a direction and not a destination. So we started moving in that direction. We started our journey in 2007. At that time, we were emitting 276 grams of carbon dioxide to generate $1. And as we speak in the current context, we are emitting only 43 grams of carbon dioxide to generate the same $. We have reduced our emissions by 84% during that period of time. Same goes with water. We have reduced our water consumption from 13.1 liters per clock hour to 9.5 liters per clock hour. And when we started our journey, we did not know what to do with our waste. But today, we either recycle or reuse 86% of our solid waste. I'm going to talk more about how and what we are going to do in the future in the next slide. So this is where we want to be. This is where we want to position ourselves in the global apparel market. We want to be seen and identified as a net zero impact producer. As how our focus was being on net zero emissions, we will continue to have net zero emission targets, not just in Sri Lanka, but beyond that also in other territories like in Bangladesh and in India. We will also have commitments to SBTi. We will also play an integral role or a leading role in decarbonizing the supply chain of apparel industry. So we will have frameworks, policies in deciding in working with, in selecting suppliers so that we can help decarbonizing the entire value chain of the apparel sector. Water is a very important aspect in our production. We have understood that it a long time ago, and we have invested a lot during the past 15 years on water savings. But being a forward-thinking company, and also to go one step further, we want to become net zero water positive by 2027, which simply, in simple words, we will release more water to the environment than what we actually get from the environment. So we will use technologies like rainwater harvesting, water treatment, water recycling in doing that. And finally, we want to recycle or reuse 100% of our solid waste. So this is an area which requires a lot of knowledge sharing, engagement, commitments. So we have already started working with SMEs, startups, research institutes, locally and globally, because this is something that needs to happen if we want to practice material circularity. And not only that, we will give priority to purchase products made from recycled material so that we can actively engage or actively take part in closing the loop of material circularity. So these are some of the global partners who we have been working with over the past decade and a half. And I have not listed all the partners, but some of them I have listed here. So while thanking them for the great service and the support that they have given us, extended to us so far, I sincerely hope that they will support our next journey as well. So finally, I'll conclude my presentation with this slide. Can we make Sri Lanka the preferred sourcing hub for sustainable products? We are not talking about apparel here. We are talking about the manufacturing sector in general. In general, we may not have the advanced technologies like other countries. We may not have our cost of production may not be very competitive. Then what's going to be our competitive advantage going forward? Why not sustainability? Because we are blessed with all the natural resources. We are blessed with a workforce which is an inspiring workforce. So why not we be the supplier for the entire, because we saw the growing demand for sustainable products. Why not we be the supplier of sustainable products to the entire world? I'm not talking about the apparel only, like I said earlier. It can be the tea bag that we make and export from Sri Lanka. It can be the tile that we make and export from Sri Lanka. Why can't we be the supplier of sustainable products? So let's work together, and let's make Sri Lanka the preferred sourcing hub for sustainable products. Thank you very much for your time, and we are happy to answer your questions during the Q&A. Over to you, Dino.
Thank you, Akila, once again, leaving you with a very thought-provoking question as to whether we can make Sri Lanka the hub for sustainable sourcing. Now, that wraps up our presentations, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much to all the speakers who took the time and shared in detail their approach. We looked at, as mentioned, organizational, national, and international levels in terms of ESG and sustainability in looking at how we can build a sustainable future for all. We will now be opening up, of course, the floor to your questions. A reminder, we are a little short on time. So to those present with us, we'd like to remind you to please keep your questions short and to the point, and also mention who you will be directing the question to. Please wait till a mic reaches you. To those of you joining us online on the Zoom link, please feel free to keep sending your questions. We might not have time to answer all of them, but we assure you the organizing committee behind this special summit will ensure that you receive the answers to your questions subsequent to the closure of the summit. I'd like to invite Akila and Vinura to please join me on stage, and we'll also be having our other three panelists who will be joining us on screen. Thank you very much. We'd like to open with maybe a question from the audience here with us this evening. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Feel free to raise your hands and we'll get a microphone across to you. All right, wheels are turning. We'll give them some time. Okay, we got a question over there.
I don't know whether it is to Akila or Venura, but I do believe that both of you would be able to answer. Say, both of you mentioned that you have done this zero emission in Batticaloa. Whenever you go for linear circular systems, you know that you have been creating, basically working with recycling materials or maybe reuse potential more and more. When you work with the apparel sector, and then the recent, the couple of good journal papers says that you have been creating microplastics and microfibers both in air and water, for which there are no answers as well. Because don't you think when you're transferring your material or transforming your stuff into a different recyclable material, you're creating another problem which may affect the occupational health of your people. There are lots of evidences coming up now. The solutions are nobody knows. Don't you think that you have to, think it's high time for you all to think of that, because it is the apparel sector which creates this new types of pollution. What is your idea about that?
I'll take that question. So, Professor Mahesh, sorry, let me just to understand the question. You spoke about our net zero facility in Batticaloa. Yeah.
Quite a lot of recycling, reuse efforts. Whenever you go for these, your materials will be disintegrated into smaller levels. And say, for example, from the large to micro and nano. But the question is, when it goes to the micro and nano levels, definitely it will affect the people when it goes to air or maybe even the water. So what have you thought of those? Because there are stunning papers have now come out in the Nature, saying, basically blaming apparel sector. You're going to be one of the culprits. What is your idea about that?
So I think I'm still just trying to get the question right. So net zero has nothing to do with recycling and reuse.
100% or maybe 85% of recycling.
Recycle or reuse 100% of our waste. Yes, correct.
Which basically puts lots of smaller materials, into the environment.
Yeah, so I do not really agree with that statement. For the main reason is that the whole idea of recycling is that it does not end up in the environment.
It's in large scale. What I'm saying is now, it's not my, the statement, it is what the people, scientists have found, which is published in Nature. And that is what I'm asking. So now, one of your, the panelists also mentioned about the microfiber problem. Now, it has gone up. This is something very new. I know that I'm not expecting your answer, but I'm, asking you to contemplate on this in your future efforts. Make sure that you reduce the generation of microfibers, particularly from nylon and polyester, and also the microplastics.
Sure, thank you.
If I add one more thing, Professor, now, like our target, our goal is to reduce the consumption, or basically generation. So if we have waste, then we have to obviously look for other alternatives. And we definitely will not be recycling in our facilities. We will be working with partners who will be doing the recycling part for us. And definitely, obviously, in local and global context, there will be regulations to manage or to govern recycling. So I'm sure those problems will be addressed, and we are not in a position to give you answers directly because we are not in the recycling business. But obviously, when time goes on, there will be regulations coming into play for recycling as well.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Maybe we'll take one question online. I think we had a question for Teja, so I'd like to read that out. If you could just scroll through, please. There we go. So Teja's a question we got from Zoom chat was how important will advanced technologies such as blockchain, data analytics be to ensure sustainability and visibility in apparel supply chains? And what is the progress of adopting these technologies across the supply chain?
Yeah, sure. So again, very good question. I think some of these technologies which we keep hearing again and again, right? And then these are the technologies which are industry agnostic. They're being used for other industry or other solutions. But how that is relevant to us on tackling traceability and sustainability is, I can say that blockchain predominantly used in traceability solutions, right? Majority of the solutions, traceability solutions that I have come across, they are using blockchain as a base because blockchain is sort of a secure system, and it sort of guarantees the data accuracy and data protection. At the same time, it is available. The data can be put together and kind of populated and show as a report whenever required. So blockchain is sort of a technology behind most of the traceability solutions, ensuring we know the origin of the material and how the material is being handled throughout the supply chain, right? And then those transaction certificates or documents when the chain of custody of a raw material, let's say from cotton ginning, it goes and into yarn manufacturing, from yarn to fabric to garment, and garment to retail. I think all these stages can be tracked and traced through the blockchain technology. The other part of the question is about sorry, can you just the second part of
yes,
the question?
Tejas, the second part was, what is the progress of adopting these technologies as you see it?
Yeah, so the progress has been made. As I said, most of the solutions being built on traceability around that. Apart from that, I think it was mainly on data analytics, right? So data analytics, how that plays a huge role. I think through our purchase practices and because the consumers now are purchasing through different channels, right? We purchase online, we purchase off retail, and all that point of sale and data has been huge data generated now. And then there are also sort of consumer preferences, surveys, Google searches, and other product searches, right? So that sort of data can be, with the data analytics, translate into the useful information, which gives insights about the consumer preference, the future trends, and also some of the solutions, right? Just simple example as, how much waste is being generated across Brandix facilities, right? And I'm talking all sort of solid waste and other type of waste, right? So if you have that kind of a data and you analyze and then put it in a right channel and use it, then it is easy to find the right set of recyclers and for them to use that data and make a useful material out of it. So again, keeping my answer short, but the technologies like this can be useful and are being utilized, and explored by the innovators. And then we are in touch with many of them. I think Brandix also, I'm sure, like exploring many of these solutions.
Thank you, Tejas. Yes, definitely in terms of analytics and obviously accountability, blockchain will definitely have a part to play in the future. Let's take another question from our online audience. If we could scroll up to one for Ruby, please. Yes, Ruby, we have a question here which is basically, under the current global financial crisis, what would be the IFC approach in funding ESG-focused companies? What would be the prioritization basis? Is a question we've received.
Thanks. This is a very interesting question. So the approach, certainly, and as I also spoke through in my presentation, is the risk-based approach. So you prioritize the actions that need immediate attention, and even within we follow a mitigation hierarchy. So it's like avoid, mitigate, minimize. So, within the ESG framework, of course, I cannot say that we can do a bargaining and say that leave this or do that. But then, of course, risk-based approach is something that one will have to adopt. This is my short answer. Thanks.
Thank you, Ruby. We'd like to open it out to our audience present with us once again. If they have any other questions, we could take one more maybe from the audience. Okay, yes, we got one at the back.
I'm from the plantation industry, a totally different industry to apparel. But I was just thinking, okay, what is the lifespan of a clothing what people wear today? Fashion has come up very much. Everybody wears 2 days, 3 days, throw it away. So this is where the problem is. The problem is in how many times, how have we calculated the water print of a shirt or a trouser or underwear or whatever the cloth? And are we justifying to the world that we are using it right? Right? Production is a good thing. Fashion is good. Fashion changes. But still, are we really sustainable in all what we are doing? Are we talking sustainably?
Thank you, sir. So I think that question, we'd like to get your input on that as well, Tejas, about, in general, lifespans of clothing, especially when it comes to circular manufacturing. Has there been any evaluation in terms of the average reusability or potential for reusability? I think that would be framing that question a little better.
Yeah, sure. So again, a very, a very direct question, right? Which anybody would point. I mean, when we talk a lot about and focus about circularity, at the trend, if we see globally, and I was reading one report this morning itself, it says that average consumer in US, and this is, I think, US related. So again, in US or North America in general, are generating 35 kg of clothing waste in a year. So which is way too much. Probably in our part of the world, it may not be as much probably, but still, it's few kg, right? Which is like, quite alarming. And this is growing year on year. So I think, the solution here is multi-faced. It is not just one single linear solution to it. I think, of course, brands are looking at, and I'm talking about from PVH point of view, we are looking at some of the solutions we provide through our product is increase the durability of our product. So whatever product we make, it's good enough to use, not just for, let's say it was good enough for 10 washes. Now probably we look at product to build which are like 20, 30, 50 washes, right? So how can we increase the life cycle and durability of that? A jacket probably bought can be used throughout the life. And we also can provide, repair and those kind of solutions. So right now, I think most brands don't have that kind of solution. Once you buy it, something happens to that, then it's your problem. And most of the new age products cannot be repaired at home, which used to be a case like when 30 years ago we could probably repair any sort of clothing at home. So I think brands are also bringing this kind of solutions. They're also looking at the e-commerce, right? Like a lot of stuff we buy and then don't wear, like, or we buy for an occasion, but then, we don't use it. So again, I think the brands looking at how can you provide a line where consumers, like if I want to go to a occasion where I need to buy a suit, instead of buying new suit, I can hire it for that day and then return. So I think rental, re-commerce, repair, and increasing the durability of the product is multi. And of course, the last but not least, the recycling, where you cannot do any of these. Those products can be recycled into another textile. So make textile out of textile, and that's the probably long-term solution to the problem.
Thank you, Tejas. Thank you for giving some global perspectives. Anything to add, Vinura and Akhila?
Just a small thing now. Sustainability is also evolving. So there are different dimensions adding to sustainability, and durability, like Tejas correctly said, is another aspect or another dimension to sustainability, which we have also come across very recently, and we have also started working on them. So definitely there can be other factors also that will contribute to a more sustainable future. And yeah, because we can't wait till everything is perfect. So we'll have to start moving forward. And as we move forward, we will start adding more dimensions to what we see as sustainability also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Akhil. I hope got both local and global perspectives in terms of answers to that question. Next question is to Claire. How can corporates incorporate SDG targets and goals and the 10 principles in the UN Global Compact into their business strategy is the question that's been sent to us, Claire.
Great. Yeah. So there was a slide, very high level in my presentation on our methodology. So the first is understand your baseline, right? So for example, that could be a materiality assessment, but there are other tools available to business to do a sort of, baseline assessment. Then set some ambitious goals that are aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, like a science-based target for a 1.5 degree future, or a context-based water solution target. And for all of these steps, the Global Compact has tools and resources available through our global office or the local network Sri Lanka. So that's the second step. Then the third step is actually take action to make progress on the goals and track your outcomes. And then the fourth step is to communicate and disclose to stakeholders what the impact and outcomes are. And then that's a virtuous cycle of continuous improvement. So I hope that's helpful and a short answer.
Thanks, Claire. So I think it would be best to reach out to your local representative and getting an understanding of what how UNGC can help you in achieving those targets. Thank you for answering that question. We have time for one last question. I'd like to direct that at Vinura. That's another online questions because we've got a ton coming in. EU strategy for sustainable and circular economy, which could impact the future of the apparel business. How is Brandix planning to adopt circularity principles and seize this emerging market opportunity, Vinura?
Thanks a lot for the question. I think it's a great one. I hope I can answer a bit of what the previous question also asked. So in terms of how we are equipped for circularity, I guess it's pretty primitive at this stage. There's a lot of research and development that goes into it. Obviously, while there is research, anything that we are planning to upscale to a commercial level is totally different. So everything the more we upscale, the more sort of mitigating circumstances and uncertainties that arise. So I guess we are working closely with as much partners as we can. So instead of jumping onto circularity all of a sudden, we hope to sort of close the loop. So basically from a waste disposal point of view, we are trying to start recycling our waste disposal first. And then from the procurement side, procure more recycled material. And eventually connect that gap between our waste to the recycled material that we purchase. So obviously, some of our customers are also from Europe. So I guess there is a certain element of, I would say, sort of not really pressure, but there is a lot of direction from their end as well. So we are obviously keen to jump on the circularity initiative as much as possible.
Superb. Thank you, Vinura. And a big thank you to our panelists for joining us, Claire, Ruby, and Tejas. I know coffee probably really helps you, Claire. It's quite early there. Thank you so much for taking the time. And, of course, to Tejas and Ruby as well for joining us. And, of course, the gentleman next to me from Brandix, who spoke to you a little bit about their sustainability journey. I understand there are a lot of frustrations around this topic. It's not a perfect world scenario. Everybody's learning as we go, and the world is changing, and we're all trying to keep up with it. And I'm sure all these initiatives will culminate in achieving those targets, both Brandix as well as all associated stakeholders have set for themselves for a sustainable future. We hope this summit was thought-provoking. It made you think a little bit more about what more can be done in this area, and also how maybe cross-functionally we can learn from other industries and other stakeholders as well. A big thank you for being here to everyone who's physically with us here at the Brandix Essentials facility in Ratmalana, and to everybody, the hundreds actually, who joined us on the Zoom link from all across the globe. Thank you so much for making the time to be here with us as well. With that, we wrap up the summit for this evening. A quick reminder that all the questions you directed will be answered. The organizing committee and everybody involved behind the summit will take steps to ensure that all the questions directed to our panelists will be answered. We're just short of time. Also, we've sent a link to everyone on Zoom to review and share what you think about this summit. To those present here today, obviously we have your email addresses, so we'll be sending across a form. We'd like to hear your feedback and your thoughts on our summit this evening as well, so do share that feedback. Thank you for being here, and here's wishing you a sustainable future from everyone here at Brandix. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to invite you to please join us on the first floor as we have refreshments available. Everyone who joined us, once again, thank you for being here.